Well, Japan has declared an emergency alert at another nuclear power plant in the northeast of the country. Radiation levels of about 700 times higher than normal have reportedly been detected at the facility in Onagawa. Well, authorities are currently investigating their source. Well, for more opinion on the threat of a nuclear crisis in Japan, let's talk to Harvey Wasserman, who's written extensively on the subject of a sustainable green-powered Earth. He joins me live now from Ohio. Many thanks for being with us here on RT. Now, Japanese officials insist that there is no danger for people in relation to the crises affecting its nuclear plants. Well, obviously, they do want to avoid panic, but just how bad really is the current situation there, do you think?
Very bad. It's very bad. We have now reports of 6 reactors that are under stress. We've had at least a partial meltdown at least one reactor. We've already had to attempt to flood a reactor with seawater. The problem is that when nuclear reactors go down, they still require electric power to operate pumps to keep the reactors and the spent fuel cool, and this power has been lacking. And we could conceivably, God forbid, have 6 meltdowns here. This is not a situation to be taken lightly. I do not believe the Japanese government when they say that no one is at risk. They're saying no one's at risk, but simultaneously they're evacuating people. I want to applaud them for evacuating the people, but this is a situation where the risk is very, very substantial.
Well, of course, as we've been saying, the Japanese government has repeatedly stressed that it does not believe people are at risk. But as we were saying, there is now trouble at this second power plant in Onagawa, away from the Fukushima plant. And that second issue started with a fire, which was quickly put out. But now radiation levels there are rising rapidly in the facility. So is there a danger that other nuclear facilities could experience difficulty there?
Well, we've actually had 3, and you have to remember there are multiple reactors at these facilities. Unlike other places in the world, the Japanese reactors are clustered. There were 7, for example, at Kashiwazaki in 2007 when they were hit by an earthquake, and all 7 of those reactors had to shut. There are 2 separate multiple facilities at Fukushima, and now we have Onagawa as well. You remember that 11 reactors were shut when the earthquake came. We don't know how many of those reactors are suffering from severe engineering and operational problems, but it looks like far more than was originally believed. This is a huge earthquake, which by some accounts has actually been upgraded to 9.0, which is just about the peak of the scale. And these reactors were not designed to sustain a 9.0 earthquake, even though people knew it was a possibility. So we have, as I say, 11 reactors are shut. We now know that 6 are under stress, any one of which could cause a hugely devastating radiation release. There is no way that the people of Japan are not in danger, and I'm afraid that a large enough release could affect Russia.
Well, indeed, the Japanese Prime Minister did earlier say that his country was facing its biggest crisis since the end of the Second World War. And moving on, Japan, as we know, it does experience minor earthquakes almost every day, doesn't it? So how safe do you think it really is for a country like this to even have nuclear power stations in the first place?
It's not safe at all. Those reactors should never have been built. I was in Japan in 1975, 76, and 78, and exactly this kind of scenario was discussed. People said you should not build these nuclear plants because something like we're seeing now could happen. And the government and the industry said, no, we will have it under control. And we clearly see now that they don't have it under control. You have to remember, this is the second time in less than 5 years that an earthquake has hit a major nuclear facility. The Kashiwazaki facility was hit with 7 reactors in July of 2007. Serious damage was done, not as serious as we see today, but nonetheless, this is an endemic problem that we knew was happening all along. There were many, many people in Japan that argued against these reactors being built, and now we're seeing the consequences.
Well, as you mentioned, as you mentioned earlier, after the crisis at Fukushima, the government did immediately order an evacuation with the exclusion zone subsequently widened considerably. Do you think that this will help? Is the government doing enough?
It's impossible to know. In a situation like that, it's hard to do enough. We have an ongoing crisis here. These reactors are not yet under control. There's no guarantee that they'll get them under control. If you have 6 reactors that are having serious problems, simultaneous with the catastrophe that's occurred elsewhere, non-radioactive because of the tsunami and the earthquake, this country's resources are severely stressed. It'd be very difficult, even under the best of circumstances, for any government in the world to deal with 6 simultaneous reactor crises. And I can't imagine that they have sufficient personnel or resources to properly deal with this. And it is a very, very dangerous situation. Dangerous is a great understatement. Any one of these reactors, as I mentioned, is capable on its own of major radiation releases. There is an additional factor. These are old reactors. And as a result, they have a lot of spent fuel. And in this particular design, they're stored at the top of the reactor, if you can believe that. And so they're very, very vulnerable, not only with the ongoing operation of the reactor core, but also with what may happen to the highly radioactive spent fuel.
No, Japan undoubtedly facing a very critical situation. Harvey Wasserman, many thanks for speaking to us from Ohio.
Well, thank you, and I wish you all the best.